few years ago, a series of books and shows by an author by the name of Marie Kondo really grabbed the world and set off a trend on minimalizing and decluttering your life. Kondo's work was mostly all about throwing away things that you don't love and that don't really press your heart button. And it caused quite a following and was a bit of a trend for a while, but what it reflected, and perhaps why it really took fire, was it reflected a deep desire that we have increasingly developed for a simpler life, a simpler lifestyle. Our lives have become so complicated and so full of stuff in this modern, high-tech, overly connected world that we have, that we start having this natural urge just for simplification. Because quite frankly, all the stuff that we have causes a lot of stress. What we all define as simple is different for different people, but a simplified life really means that there's less clutter, there's less emotional clutter, there's less physical clutter, and as a result of all of that, there's more time for you. There's more time for what matters to you. There's more time for you to do those things. And there's really more time to live your own life and stop having to compare yourself to others and engage with all that stuff that tells you what you're supposed to do and who you're supposed to be. And really just getting back to living your own life as simply as possible. The whole trend was also quite dramatically increased over the period of lockdown and quarantine and isolation that most of us faced over the course of the last year. The isolation increased our anxiety levels and increased our fear, increased our despair, and increased the sense of purposelessness in everything that we do. I mean, it was all kind of thrown into sharp relief. When we weren't able to do all the things that we do every day, we started asking ourselves, why do we do them? And experiencing the stress of not doing them, even though there didn't seem to be such a good reason to do them anymore. And many people went back to simpler ways that really resemble how our ancestors lived just a couple of generations ago. Our grandparents and great-grandparents. That would be the baking bread, the making your own clothes, the cutting your own hair, all those things that became like features of the lockdown experience were natural human life before it got so cluttered and got so stressful as a result of the clutter. I mean, the one thing that was really good about lockdown is that we had all this connectivity, we had all these ways of staying in touch and checking on each other and visiting people that we couldn't visit because of quarantine and isolation. And that is extremely important. That is a great benefit that happened because of the technology that we have. And many people have said, thank goodness the lockdown happened at a time when there is such technology that can connect people in those ways. But on the other hand, it's also that connectivity and all the technology that also stresses us further. We constantly have to check messages, we constantly have to answer people, we constantly have to respond to notifications, we constantly on call. Even when we communicate with each other these ways, we expect instant results, which is very different than what people were doing a couple of generations ago, when you could write a letter and expect days or weeks or even more to pass before you got a result. Something that also developed during the lockdown period was a phenomenon known as cottagecore. It did exist before, apparently, but it's really a movement back to a simpler lifestyle, and which is really just about finding a place or a way of living which is more natural, where people find themselves more accepted and where they can be themselves more, and actually embracing some of that isolation as part of the simplicity, instead of reacting to it as feelings of fear and loneliness, to realize Simplicity is what it ultimately reflects, and that allows us to focus more on purpose. So people who follow the cottagecore philosophy also do things like switch off their devices more and try and live more harmoniously with nature. Things which emerge from that movement and elsewhere can really help us simplify our lives. So what I want to do in today's show is, I've scoured the net and spoken to a few people and read a few things, and I've gathered together a few ideas that can really help us simplify our lives. And even if you only take up some of them, because some of them might be a little bit out there for you, I'm sure that if you adopt just a few of these within the next couple of weeks, you can reduce your stress, simplify your life, get back to a way of being yourself in this very changed world that we find ourselves in. So how to simplify ourselves so that we can live a less stressed and less uncertain life in what has become a stressful, uncertain world. So unsurprisingly, the first step to simplification is really to just calm down on all those devices and notifications, like I've said. We increase our stress through all the doom scrolling, as it's called, going through your news feed, which is, like any news always was, pretty much full of bad news. So we expose ourselves to a lot of really challenging stuff that pretty much has nothing to do with us and is nothing that we can fix. So we stress ourselves through this process of doom scrolling through all the news all the time and picking up on all this bad news, and it's known to cause a lot of stress. So that's one place we need to stop, and we'll get back to how our devices increase our stress in a few minutes' time. The other thing about what this kind of high-tech world has created is, firstly, a need for instant gratification. We want results of everything immediately. With the thing that we want, we're used to now ordering online and it arrives the next day. All of these things have increased our desire for instant gratification and made us less satisfied with the here and now. So learning to be present in the moment. Nothing needs to come, nothing is needed right now. Just being present in the moment is really what we can do. The other thing that has arisen out of this lifestyle is the instant connectivity that I was talking about. Not only increases the stress because of all the needs for responses, but actually we've become more codependent. We need to contact each other all the time. We speak to each other many times during the day, even if just by a message. A lot of it is good or harmless or whatever. But think about this, if you're old enough to. Do you remember when you used to go on holiday, say to another country or somewhere very far away? Perhaps you sent postcards which would take weeks to arrive at their destination, but no one would know what you were up to until you arrived back many weeks later, and you wouldn't know what was going at home until you arrived back many weeks later, and it was fine. It was natural and normal. Now we have to be in contact all the time, constantly sharing and oversharing all the time. We are stressed when we don't hear from each other. And we've created this new form of stress that is pretty much unnecessary. It's not really necessary to keep on sharing where you're at, what you're doing, photograph of it all the time, or checking in on each other as much as we do. As well intended as it is, and as good as it can be in certain circumstances, we need to remember that it takes us away from ourselves, it makes us dependent, and it takes us away from the moment. We've got to learn to be okay with ourselves, and we can do that by being okay in the moment. We don't need an instant gratification. We don't need to connect with someone or make a message. In fact, we could switch off our devices. Probably the fastest way to simplify our lives that exists in our times. Some other ideas that I came across that I found really good ones. Firstly, setting monthly goals instead of long-term things like New Year's resolutions. We all face the horrible fact that New Year's resolutions pretty much never get followed through, or they stumble and fall halfway through the year. So chopping up goals into smaller bits monthly goals, daily and weekly goals. We don't have to overdo it and create 1,000,000 goals. That's just going to stress us more. But even when we have a larger goal, chopping it down to a smaller goal or a series of smaller goals is often a great way to simplify. And then we don't feel overwhelmed by what we have to do to get the task done. So simplify the task into small tasks, concentrate only on those. Which is similar to the basic decluttering process. Decluttering your physical space, of course, is another thing that you'll find really declutters the stress. People have ideas like throw away or give away one thing per day. And I think that's a great idea. Getting control of our time is a very important way to simplify our lives as well. And one of the best ways to do that is, I've already said, turn off the device. The most important device to turn off is the TV. I know that some of you are recoiling in horror, and I'm suggesting you do that only after the show, of course. But TV is largely a time suck. We sit there watching things that we don't really care about. We mostly watch out of habit or to relax at the end of the day, which is a legitimate need. But it's a mindless way to do that, and because of that, it ends up wasting a lot of time. We could do things which increase our peace of mind, increase our sense of self. If you practiced your musical instrument or read a book about something that you're interested in or care about, anything which actually enhances your sense of, this is my life, I'm doing my life, I'm in control of my life, I'm doing things I love. What if we spent the time that we'd normally spend watching TV on doing something small that you love, something that normally you'd think is too small to do, too trivial, or I haven't got the time for that as much as I'd love to do that. Take that TV time to do that. It doesn't really matter what happens in the next episode, or anyway, all those episodes are designed to keep you watching. They don't fulfill our needs for narratives and satisfy the story in which we learnt a great lesson. The old idea of narrative is long gone in this episodic binge-watching world that we live in, where the writer's only job is to make you come back and watch the next episode. Even when you get to the end of a series, does it end? Hardly ever. Usually designed to make you come and watch the next series. What is the ultimate point of any of that? Entertainment is a great thing. It's sure it is. But we need to just constrain that a little bit. And I'm not saying don't watch TV or that there's anything wrong with the series. We all love them, we all watch them, I know I do. But understanding the time it takes from your life and regaining some of that time at least. So maybe watch less TV. Limit it to a certain amount of time per day. And while we're doing that, why don't we limit devices to a certain amount of time per day, by which I mostly mean social media. Now, some of you might be on Apple or something which keeps a track for you of how much time you spend on what. But do that yourself, and I dare you to limit your time on social media. What if you keep a timer and only allow yourself an hour of social media a day? Why do I say that? Because amazingly, statistics show that today people spend an average of 5 hours per day connected to social media, primarily, of course, Facebook, and then Instagram and the others. It creates the stress, it demands a lot of our attention, and is also just a large waste of time. Certainly scrolling Facebook is just another version of doom scrolling. Scrolling on Facebook has been shown repeatedly and conclusively to increase stress levels and increase our dissatisfaction with our own lives. That is scientifically proven, because it's all about comparing yourself against pretty much imagined other lives that don't really matter in the first place. So set the timer. Try and allow yourself only 1 hour of social media a day. Maybe it's 2 if you're really a big addict that you need to work down to 1 hour. It's amazing how much you can get back and how much you will discover what you are wasting your life on. So simplest way to simplify your life today is probably to get off social media, but keeping it at an hour is a way to do that. And then find other negative things. We do a lot of negative thinking in our lives as well. Self-criticism, or thinking about the worst possible outcome, or other ways. And it's just about catching yourself on that. Some of simplification, a large part of simplification is becoming more present, becoming more self-aware and more present in your own life. And the more kind of present in your own life you are, the more in control of your own life you feel, the simpler life seems to be. It doesn't seem as if there's all this other stuff that you have to do. Here's a good one. Pay off your debt. I came across that one and I thought, it's great advice, but how do you do that? Well, there are all sorts of methods you could use. I was taught one by my brother many years ago, and that is that you look at all the things you're paying off. You find the one that's going to be paid off the soonest, and you increase it just by a very slight amount so that it will be paid off a little bit sooner. As soon as that is paid off, you take the whole amount that you were paying off on that and add it to number 2 on the list. You were already paying off that money, so you haven't increased your monthly output. So you take off, if you were paying 100 Rand a month for something, you now have completed paying it off, you take that 100 Rand a month and you add it to number 2 on the list where you were paying 200 Rand for something a month. And that's now 300 Rand a month and it gets paid off super fast. You now take the whole sum that you've been paying off and add it to number 3 on the list, which is now increased by a significant amount, and it gets paid off super fast. And what happens? You dramatically reduce the amount of interest, money for nothing, that you're paying, and you dramatically speed up the time that everything's paid off. Before you know it, your car, your bond, all of that are paid off. Sounds idealistic, worked for me, and that certainly can be a strategy, or you can find similar strategies, or at least gaining a handle on debt so it doesn't feel like this thing that's sucking at you and making you a little bit more miserable. I was also thinking about, while we're kind of getting rid of everything, getting rid of words, saying less and doing less. Saying less is a very powerful way to simplify your life. It sounds a little bit silly, but speak only when it's necessary. Speak only when you actually do have something to say, or when you actually have something to contribute to the conversation. How many times have you heard that? But when you realize how much stress it takes away, because it stops you becoming engaged in pointless and meaningless arguments or disagreements, something that social media also does. So cutting down the social media, and then in the rest of life, learning to say less makes you more present, makes you more with yourself. I mean, you can take it a step further and say no more. Reduce your commitments. Just say no. Saying no can cut out a lot of the unnecessary things you do and a lot of the things that you do not contribute to the advancement of your own life. I'm not saying be more selfish. I'm just saying be more self-aware and ask yourself, is that to do with me? Do I have the time to do that? How many lives am I going to live that I can afford to say yes to everything? I've got to do what I've got to do. And becoming more present, also allows you another one. It came up a few times in our conversations about how do we simplify our lives. Everyone came back to meditation every now and then, because that's like learning to sit doing nothing, which sounds like anathema to the modern mind, but can be a very powerful thing that we do. So learning to just sit and be. Finding ways to cut down on time. So automating other tasks can also do that. You can find ways on your computer to automate certain things, automate responses to emails, automate some of your activities. If you computer literate, even just in a small way, look up a website called If This Then That, and that helps you automate many things in your computer life, in your emails, and your to-dos, and your social media, and takes a whole bunch of time out of that and puts it back in your hands. If this, then that. All kinds of repetitive things can be simplified, whether you're getting a pressure cooker or whether you are automating your computer tasks. We can spend less time on things that are repetitive, because they're also boring and therefore stressful. Getting dressed in the morning is one of those. Many successful people say one of the ways to do it is only have a few clothing items or wear the same thing every day. That's a powerful one that we can also do. Steve Jobs did that, Elon Musk does that. Some of the most successful people in the world out there spend less time choosing what clothes to wear, worrying about it, worrying about what other people think about what they look like, or having to maintain what they look like. Maybe if it's not wear the same things every day, just have a few clothing items that you can mix and change in many ways, but that are all based around the same, 7 pieces of clothes. And it can be challenging for some people, but it will remove a lot of the unnecessaries in your life, and mostly the unnecessary time spent on deciding and maintaining what to wear. It sounds so arbitrary. There are so many people who talk about simplification that talk about that one. And I think the examples of successful people really hit the point home. Something that you can also get rid of while we're talking about getting rid of all the unnecessary things, the emails themselves. There are 2 things you can do to make your email life a lot easier. One of them is unsubscribe. There's so many things you end up subscribing to. You just click. You buy something, you click. You say yes, you click. You end up getting hundreds of emails every day or week that are all about lists or products that you're not really connected to or interested in. It just clutters your email. Press the unsubscribe button. Go off now. The other thing you can do while you're on your computer is try and move a lot of things to the cloud. Moving to a cloud service means you don't have to keep track of files. You can't lose files. Files can't become damaged or corrupt, and you've always got the most up-to-date version wherever you are. So whether you're on your phone, your laptop, another computer, at work, at home, all these places we have to manage our data all the time. And the cloud, some people don't like the idea of it because they think it's out there and I don't know where it is and it's not secure. It is secure, and the most important thing is it takes a lot of effort off your hands. We're trying to simplify. If all your documents are in one place, that makes it a lot simpler. If it makes you stressed out, make a backup onto a hard drive every now and then, but quite frankly, the cloud is a pretty safe place to leave it, so leave it there. If you really want to simplify your computer experience, this one I'm still trying to work on. I came across this one and I thought, oh really, let's do a whole show on that one day. Keep only one tab open on your browser. I dare you. If you're going to have to change to another tab, you have to close this tab, finish what you're doing or finish what you're reading. Keep only one tab open on your browser might be one of the most challenging things I've said to us today. And similarly to trying to read lots of things at the same time and track lots of things at the same time, don't multitask. We think we can multitask. We think it's quite nifty to do lots of things at the same time, and it isn't. The human brain isn't capable of multitasking. It often looks like we're multitasking, but we actually aren't. We're switching between things. It increases the stress and reduces the performance every single time. You might think you're the wizard of multitasking, but the truth is, with each of the things that are now all on your agenda at the same time, you end up performing worse, doing them less well, and that's not what you want to do. It reminds me of my own personal favorite simplification one, the one that I'm going to finish on today, and that is slow down, chill, and stop. In fact, just stop. At the end of the working day, stop. When 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock comes, just stop. Stop answering emails. Stop doing the tasks. They're all going to be there tomorrow. If you don't answer that email now, it's still going to be there and the other person's still going to be there tomorrow. After all, be they emails or work-related tasks, they are endless, are they not? If they ended, we'd all be on holiday by now. They are endless. So there's no doubt that if you stop now, it's still going to be there tomorrow. And if you shuffled off this mortal coil and left the planet, someone else will carry on with those tasks anyway. So as I always said, just stop. You won't die, they won't die. Just stop, carry on tomorrow at 9 a.m. It's all good. And like that, for me, is the most powerful way to simplify our lives. The bottom line is, the results of simplifying our lives, we increase our peace of mind, we tend to get more relaxed, creative, and intuitive. we feel more connected with ourselves, more connected with nature and the world around us, and most important, we get to know ourselves better. We get to know ourselves and ultimately to like ourselves, and ultimately to naturally prioritize without selfishness but with awareness that which is important for us to live our own lives peacefully and in harmony with the rest of the world. Okay, now will be the time to turn off the TV, but I'll be back here next week just when you're turning it back on, same time. See you then.